Hello, my name is Guro Sean Hurst. Today we're going to be studying a Filipino martial art known as Kali. In our school, where we practice it, we draw from several different resources. One of the primary ones is Guru Dan Inosanto. We also, and his method would be the Inosanto La Costa Kali method, but we also study from the Doce Pares method, we study from the Pakiti Tertia method, we study from the modern Arnis method. There are many Filipino combat systems method. So there's many methods that we draw from in order to develop our system of Kali. The base or framework that we use is known as the, it comes from the La Costa Kali, and what that is you got 12 areas, and that includes your weapons. You've got 12 stages of Abecedario, you've got 12 stages of Sombrada, and you've got 7 methods of training. So what we're going to do today is look at some of the different ways that all this fits into our level 1 curriculum. Assisting me today is going to be Guro Langkan Joey Turner, and behind the camera is Guro Langkan Tony Peters. And we're going to do our best to cover as much as we can of the Kali. Of course, we're not perfect, so we're just going to have fun with this and see where it goes from here. So one of the first things that I want to talk about today is range. Now, in the Filipino martial arts, you have several different ranges. Some people will break it down into 7 ranges. Some people will say there are 5. Some people say there are 3. It doesn't matter. It's just a way for us to communicate so we all understand what area we're talking about. So for us, the first range that we talk about, we don't use very much, is a range called Distancia Fura, where we don't actually make any contact. In other words, we can size one another up. This would usually be done in more of a sparring type scenario where we're both on guard and it's 1, 2, 3, ready, go, and then you fight. In a street situation, you may not have that opportunity. The next range that we have is what's commonly known as Distancia Largo Mano, and we usually define that by holding the sticks out. The object is you can only hit the hand in Distancia Largo Mano, okay? And that's one dialogue. For instance, it's also known as, let me check my spelling here, Antao. All right, that's another dialogue for the same thing. Typically when I ask my students to show me Largo Mano, this is what I'm looking for. A lot of them can't remember the Filipino terminology, and that's fine. I just want to see that they understand that all they can do is hit one another's hand. In other words, Joey can't hit me in the body. See that? All right, he can't kick me. And unless he's got a gun, I mean, there's basically no way he's going to make contact with me unless he lunges at me. Now, when we move into the middle range, okay, if you come a little closer, we would define that here by the ability to use the checking hand. And I'll get to the terminology in just a second. It's very important that you use the checking hand. One of Guru Inosanto's instructors, Dan Inosanto's instructors, once told him that the checking hand or the alive hand or the guardian hand, those are names for the same thing. It's this hand here, which is called the Bente Kame, is the most deadly hand in the art. And that's because while I'm here blocking and checking, I can use it to disarm, or while I'm using that hand, when I'm blocking, I can use it to come over and hit. It could then draw a knife, and I could then cut. I can grab with it. I can lock. So it has multiple different purposes. But that Bente Kame is really important. Okay, and that's what we define as the middle range, is the ability to use that Bente Kame. All right, now the middle range names, usually referred to as Distancia Medio Mano or Medio Mano, also called Kalahati, which is a Tagalog word, or Tunga, which is a Visayan word. Basically, they mean half range. We then move into the next range, which is Corto Mano, or close range. This is basically the ability to use the puños. See, Joey can use it, I can use the puño. In this range, obviously, we can disarm. If we disarm here, we can move into the empty hand. All right, there's so many different techniques we can do from here. You could headbutt, elbow, all of those things. But when we train, what I'm looking for from the students is the simplest answer possible. So when you go to take your test, and I ask, you can just simply demonstrate by saying, I have the ability to use the puño. That's corto mano, or close range. The other term for this is sometimes called the kit. And depending on the style of Filipino martial art, you'll see a lot of the dikit being used. And that can describe a lot of different drills. And so that in and of itself is your ranges. Great. So now what we're going to be doing is covering our stick grips. All right. Now remember, you don't hold your stick like this, okay? You want to make sure you hold your stick with a little bit of puño at the end. What I mean by that, we call this end of the stick the puño. We call this end, usually we refer to it as the puña. You typically want a little bit of puño, and I'll explain why later. You can hit with it like we talked about in the corto mano range. You can hook with it to disarm. There's so many different uses with it. It's a good tool. Now, how do you measure how much to have? Some instructors say you take one finger, that's how much puño you have. Some say 2 fingers, that's how much. 3 fingers, a fist. It depends on the instructor. I was always taught 3 fingers because it represented the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So that's what I go with. Everybody's different. And you'll find when you're training, sometimes if a stick's heavier or lighter, you may just adjust accordingly, and that's fine. It's up to you. That's a standard grip. Then you have a center grip, which is usually used in assisting, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. I'll come back to that. Then you have what they call the sushi grip, which is usually also used as a shielding method, and it's an assisting method, which I'm going to show in just a second. But the most common grip you'll see is the grip just like this, where you have a little bit of puño here and your puña is here. Now, to look at the center grip and the sushi grip so we understand how one might use those. If Coach Joey, if you come in a little bit more, if he were to feed me an angle 1 and I wanted to disarm this, all right, when I disarm it, you see, I can use this grip to disarm. It might be, when I disarm it, see the hit to the head here, see the thrust to the armpit, see how it comes over and disarms. There are many applications, and this can also translate later to the double-ended dagger. With the sushi grip, it's the same concept. It's a support weapon. So when I block here like this, as I come around, watch. Look at the thrust to the throat. See the stripping. This is very strong. Obviously, I would be moving and hitting. For the sake of the video, I don't want to be running around right now because it's going to be very difficult for you to see. And for poor Guro Langkan Tony to follow me around while I'm running. So those are typically where the middle grip and the sushi grip would be used. You could still do it single-handedly if you fed the angle and I was in a rush. You see I could still block like this, come in, feed that, and strip that out. See how that comes back really quickly. That might happen because in earlier times, the escrimadores or carlista would be drawing their blade. And as they're trying to draw the blade, if the blade's slung on this side, they may not be able to draw it quick enough. The guy ambushes them, and he's able just to pull the blade out like that. In which case, from here, you see there's the thrusting motion. It's stripping it out and cutting back. Multiple applications. The point being, those are the stick grips. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to some of the basic strikes. So we're going to look at the basic strikes and basic angles. Okay, now we're going to be talking about the different striking angles. In the Filipino martial arts, there are so many different types. For instance, in one particular style, they may view the striking angles as angle 1 here, angle 2 here, angle 3 here, angle 4, and angle 5. Whereas a different system would say, no, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It really doesn't matter. There are so many different numbering systems from different arts, But to be honest, all that matters is that we have the ability to communicate, and that's why we give the angles numbers. For instance, if I were to say to Joey, give me a angle 1, I know that when he does the 1, that's what I can expect. And if we're doing drills, I may say, okay, you're going to give a 1 and then a 4, and I'm going to disarm on the 4. So he would give the 1, the 4, see, and then I know that I can disarm on the 4. And there's the use of the puño like we talked about earlier. So the concept here is that the use of angles and the numbers in the angles is just for form of communication. If you want to be technical, you have 360 degrees in a circle, therefore you could have 360 angles. If you want to be more technical, a circle can be broken down into what they call mils, and there's 1,000 mils in a circle. We're just going to go with 5 basic ones, and we're going to add number 8, and that's going to be on top of the head. We're going to skip 6 and 7 for right now. So we're about to show these from several different perspectives. So the first perspective is here. Angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, and angle 5. Now, a couple things to note on this. On the angle 1, when I go down, if I come up, it's still angle 1. If I were to use my elbow and strike down, it would still be angle 1. If I was flexible enough to lift my leg up in the air and kick down that way, it would still be angle 1. It would be angle 1 if I hit with the puño there. It would be angle 1 if I hit and hacked. Angle 2 is the same. Still angle 2. It's angle 2 if I hit and hack. It's angle 2 if I hit and hack. This is still angle 2. 3 and 4 share the same line. So 3 comes from the forehand side, 4 comes from the backhand side. On angle 5, it's a thrust. There are a couple ways you can do it. At our academy, we prefer at Tribe K to thrust up this way, so that if you get in a clinching position here, you can develop a lot of power, versus this way, which is more of a fencing type thrust, where if this is a blunt object, you're not going to deliver as much power. This has much more power when you're thrusting. So those are the 5 angles from that perspective. Angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, angle 5. So we have angle 1 again, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, and angle 5. Now, let me note something. On angle 3 and 4, they could go to the floating rib. They can also go to the elbow. So you can go to the floating rib, or it can go to the elbow here. Some people say that on the angle 1 it goes to the collarbone. Some argue it goes to the temple. And that's fine. Different instructors have different opinions about it. As long as you understand the slashing and it forms an X, you're fine on the angle 1 and the angle 2. Now, all 5 of these strikes together are sometimes referred to as a cinco terro, which just means 5 strikes. Or it's your first combination, angles 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, angle 5. Now there's something I want to note. Again, I can slice through, and that's called a lob tick, or I can hit and retract, and that's called a whip tick. If I hit with the forehand side, that's called tigibus. If I hit with the backhand side, that's usually referred to as ortibus. Now that doesn't matter the angle. In other words, this is a tigibus, this is a tigibus. They're both forehands. This is an ortibus, this is an ortibus. What ticks tend to hit and retract, they can come this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. They sometimes hit in multiples, it doesn't matter. But these are the striking qualities. We also have a striking quality that we refer to as primero. Primero is usually used when I want to feed a brand new student. I'm going to feed Coach Joe angle 1. I want you to do an inside deflection. You notice I don't slice through, yet I don't hit and retract either. I'm just simply stopping. This gives him time to learn the technique. So you have to understand that there are different ways to deliver these 5 angles. Now, one that I forgot is angle 8, the caveman strike, straight on top of the head. Doesn't take a whole lot to figure that one out, so we don't need to go ahead and go back and see that from every single angle. Comes straight down on top of the head. Okay, now what we're going to do is look at a drill, or a family of drills known as abecedario. Now, abecedario sometimes is referred to as abacada. That's the Filipino alphabet, and it's basically just the ABCs. The way you would define it would be to say that it's a one-sided drill. In other words, when we do the drill, you're going to notice that either I'm feeding Joey a constant stream of strikes and he's defending, or vice versa. He's going to be attacking the whole time and I'm going to be defending, but there's no give and take inside of the drill. Abecedario is a great way when you're introducing a new technique to a student, no matter what it is, even if it's advanced disarms or stick and dagger or whatever. It's a great way to introduce something new because you run through it. There are actually different ways to train abecedario. There's 12 stages of it, and then there are 7 ways to actually train it, which we'll get into in our more core concepts DVD. In the primary, I guess, concept in Kali is something called defanging the snake, and Master Ben Lagusa, I heard him mention that once, that's a primary principle. So if Joey has his stick and we're out here in long range and we're fighting, the concept for me is to hit him in his weapon hand, because if I can do that, I can take away his weapon, much like knocking the teeth out of a snake. Of course, unless it's a spitting cobra, and then yes, I understand they're still going to spit at you. But you get the idea. The object is to do that. Now, if you look at this concept, really, by hitting his hand, I have the close target. Most people are what we call head hunters. So in other words, his concept is to try and hit me in the head. But if I go for the hand, I have the advantage of range at all times. Now, because of the lack of, with the camera, we can't move around a lot. But keep in mind that if you've got good footwork, you can stay in the largo mano range and consistently attempt to hit your partner's hand and try and defang that snake. If you do so, wham, one good strike, wham, another one, and here maybe this is the one, you disarm him. In the event the other hand he tries to punch, again, same thing, he now has no weapons. We joke around about the Black Knight from a certain movie, and it's just a flesh wound. But if you cut off the limbs or disable them, they cannot continue to fight. And although that may not seem very compassionate, it is, because I don't have to finish him off with a killing blow. I can simply smash the hands, he can't attack me anymore, and we can end the fight where he is still able to walk away and live another day. So now we're going to do the drill. Enough talking. When we do the drill, we typically would feed the ankles first in order. So Joey would feed me ankle 1, then 2. Now, when 3 and 4, I don't want to come across on the same plane, or I'm going to crack myself in the hand. So I need to come at a different angle. I can choose to strike down, and the angle 5 thrust across. That is often called the gunting. Again, one more time with the thrust, they will usually parry here. So the 1, the 2, good. The 3, good. The 4, good. And the 5, good. Make sure again on that 3 and 4 that you don't hit on the same line they're hitting. See, a lot of students do this and they go, it doesn't work, Guru. That's because you're hitting on the same line. I need to come on a different line in order to make that work. Otherwise, we're gonna intersect and crash together. All right. Then you could mix the angles. Joey could mix them if he wanted to. Good. See, he could feed him in any order he wanted. Good. And the idea again here, you see how light we're going, just would be to hit the hand. Good. And then eventually he could also throw fakes. He could throw drifting attacks. That's going to come later. Now, we like to do a little bit harder training at the school. So when we train, what we like to do is use proper safety gear. So Coach Joey and I right now are going to get the proper safety gear on, and we're going to show you how to do this drill with the proper safety gear. We like to use a hockey or a lacrosse glove. Works very well. You can also get the Lameco hand protectors. There are many different types of sticks you can use. Something padded though, preferably. And the object again here is just to hit the hand. So when he feeds us, I want to stay in largo mano range, and I want to hit the hand. And this way, I can give it a little bit of oomph. I can learn what it's like without having fear of hurting Coach Joey. Now notice, as I do this in largo mano, I'm meeting the force. Now you can also follow the force. Let's talk about this. Meeting the force is every time he comes, I intersect it. I'm coming right at it. I'm coming right at it. I'm coming right at it. Following the force would be traveling behind it. Following the force, following the force, following the force, following the force, following the force. And again, in the angle 8, you could follow the force by coming behind it that way. On the angle 8 comes and I meet the force would just be to hit the hand there. These are the basics of the abecedario. Really, that's all it is. Now, there are different stages. We add more strikes, we add more follow-ups and counters, but if you can master this, and you can master it well, you'll be a very good fighter because you can use the advantage of range. And one more thing, as I'm hitting here, if you want to advance and you see an opportunity, you may be able to check the rear hand. So you see as I'm here, see I may be able to check the rear hand. That's a little bit more advanced training. You're going to see that again later in some of the other levels, but I just want to introduce it. It's important because Kali forces you to watch both hands. Traditionally, when I learned to fight in other arts that were maybe less fluid, or more rigid, they would feed a punch and you would block it, and then you would do your attack, and you would do your 20 other attacks, and your throw. The problem that I found in sparring with that is that nobody threw just one punch. The guy was going to come at me with a barrage of punches, and I had to learn how to defend against that. And that's what Kali does. It teaches you to compute both hands. See, I know that one's coming. I have to check it. I know that's coming. I understand all of this. You see, I understand that it's going to be multiple attacks. And so this teaches you to monitor both hands. Okay? And hit the hand, destroy the limb first. Again, keep in mind the morality code here. Love, compassion, and humility. We want to injure in degree, so we want to have compassion. If I can just break the hand, although that sounds terrible, at least that way I don't have to kill him. Okay, thank you very much.
First, can you tell us what your life experiences are with martial arts?
Sure. Are you asking in particular, like the types that I've studied, or
the types you studied, your combat history?
Sure, I'd be glad to. The types of martial arts that I've studied, I studied what I believe to have been Kosen Judo when I was about 6 years old. I studied that till I was about 7.5, 8 years old. Right around the time the A-team started coming on and I was missing episodes. I was the only kid that went to school that didn't know what happened during the A-team, so I quit judo in order to make sure that I could see what BA had done the night before, which I regret now, of course. When I was about 9 years old, my dad noticed that my brother and I were kind of fighting like little girls in the living room, so we went out and got junior a welterweight or Olympic boxing gloves for my brother and I, and said, if you're going to fight like men. And my father had been a boxer in college. Now, you hear that a lot, and you hear a lot of people throw around the term golden glove. Golden glove means that you went to a tournament and you won the tournament. There are as many golden glove tournaments as there are high school basketball tournaments. So that really, doesn't hold a whole lot of weight if you really understand what the term means. And I'm not saying that to offend any boxing instructors or boxers, because I certainly don't want to do that. All I'm simply saying is it's like people using the term black belt these days. It's thrown out there a lot, and it doesn't, sometimes doesn't have a whole lot. My father was an extremely good boxer, and I don't just say that because he was my dad. So he taught my brother and I how to box, taught us a lot about the importance of keeping the hands up, keeping the chin tucked, proper body movement, and really learning how to take a hit, and learning that if you're going to give a hit, you really better be mentally prepared to do so, because there are a lot of people, like the conversation we had with one of our students the other day where there was a fight that broke out, and he ended up grabbing the guy that hit him, but he kind of froze up and couldn't do anything after that. My father really taught us that there's a point where you have to be ready to go beyond. And when you're defending yourself and in boxing, there's that point where you have to make the decision, I'm going to hit this guy. I've made the decision, I'm going to hurt this person. My father also studied foil, épée, fencing, and so he taught us a lot of the principles of that with the riposte, the simple riposte, the compound riposte, and kind of showed us how to mix that in with boxing. I don't think it was necessarily intentional, but he would do these funny riposte movements and then shoot it and hit us, and it was hilarious because he'd get us every time because we're watching his hand go around. So I learned a lot from my father, dealing a lot with strategy. He taught us how to play chess for strategy. He didn't like us really wrestling around a lot, thought that looked kind of girlish, so he wanted us to really be able to strike and strike well. Then about the time I was 12 years old, I decided after watching the Karate Kid movies that was something I was interested in. So I started studying Shorin-ryu Karate from a man by the name of Robert Scaglione, and he owned a school dojo in Merritt Island, Florida, off South Tropical Trail. I remember being one of the students who helped build the outside dojo after we had been there a while. Beautiful inside school. We had an outside dojo, had a makwara board that I'd go out right before class for the half an hour and I would be hitting this thing. I was very dedicated to the Shorin-ryu. I was learning all of my katas. I thought I did okay. I have some photos of me testing on the beach there with my mullet, as every 12-year-old boy back then had. And I remember being the only young man about between 12 to 16 years old in the black belt classes wearing a green belt, because they didn't really have a children's program. The only one they had was for very young kids, and I was too advanced for the white belts, so they ended up sticking me in a lot of the black belt classes. So I was exposed to a lot of the Pinan Nidan, Pinan Shodan, Pinan Sandan, some of the more advanced kata, and that to me was a blast because I got to see the traditional side of the art and really where the application was, which a lot of people, I think they never get that far, and so they really misunderstand traditional karate. So from about the ages of 12 to 16, I had studied this Shorin-ryu Karate. Then about the time I hit 18, I started studying Wing Chun Kung Fu. And to be honest with you, I don't remember the name of the sensei that I studied with. We didn't study very long. He introduced me to some videotape by a man by the name of Randy Williams, and I watched them diligently and trained very, very hard until I ran into my first real Junfan Jeet Kune Do Filipino Kali instructor, Lee Peacock. And that was up in Jacksonville, Florida, while I was going to college. And I actually went there with the idea that he had a wooden dummy, and I said, listen, I just want to work out on the wooden dummy. I'll pay whatever fee you ask. If I don't like the classes, can I still just work out on the wooden dummy if I'm interrupting your classes? And he said, oh, no, sure, that's fine. He kind of smiled. And very first Jeet Kune Do class I took, I loved it. I was hooked. And started watching the Kali classes, and there was a guy there by the name of Gerona. And Guru Brian, as I refer to him now, was doing some Kali, and he was doing all these movements with the knife, and it wasn't like what I had seen in Shorin-ryu Karate where they just kind of put it out there and they let you take it away, or they do one attack like this. It was all over the place, and it was spinning and moving and flying and flopping around. And I really enjoyed that. Him and Tim Estrada were doing all these drills, and they were intricate, and they were counters and recounters. And I thought, man, I want to sign up for that. So I asked Guru Brian, what are you doing? And he told me. And we kind of became very close friends. We were working out on the wooden dummy together one day and realized we were both born-again Christians, and we kind of made a bond together. And so we started training together a lot on the side at Sifu Peacock's Academy. Also took a lot of private lessons. I was very fortunate while I was there to have the late Terry Gibson's wife, Kathy Gibson Fry, there as a guest instructor. She taught there for several months, so I got to train with her as well. And really, Kuru Burke was there teaching Muay Thai. We had a lot of great people training there. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there was some Capoeira guys there, so I got exposed to quite a bit. Also combat submission wrestling. Eric Paulson was doing seminars there. And then from there, I joined the military in 2001. Now this is about 99 when I start with Lee Peacock. About 2001, September 11th hits. By 2002, I'm in the military. And I'm watching the ground fighting stuff that they're doing in there, and I'm trying to explain to them that that's not going to work because we've got grenades strapped to our chests. We're wearing all this body armor, and if you lay me on the ground and pull me in your guard, I'm going to pull the pins on your grenade because I'm Haji and I'm going to kill us both. And so they realize really quick, maybe this grappling thing isn't the best thing for the battlefield today. Not to mention, punching somebody in the groin is a great way to get out of the guard. So you really don't want somebody that close to your reproductive organs. Okay, now we're going to be looking at how to defend ourselves in the middle range. Medio mano, kalahati, all right, tunga, whatever the word is you want to describe it, middle range. There's a lot that can go on in middle range. A lot of instructors will say, no, you want to stay out at the largo mano, because you can win with that. And there was a time where the Largo Mano people during a revolt in the 1600s defeated a certain ruler in the Philippines, and so the Largo Mano style became the premier style. And there were some instructors, if they knew the old style, which was the middle range and the close range, and they knew the Largo Mano style, Grandmaster Hiron said that the name of that instructor would be ringing in the people's ears because they would understand how to fight in long range and middle range. What you have to understand is that the way that the pioneers of the Filipino martial arts like Guru Dan and Asanto have put this material together is that they've taken men who only had 4 or 5 techniques, 4 or 5 angles, 4 or 5 counters, 4 or 5 blocks, and he's conglomerated these 34 or more different instructors' material together into a viable system. When he did that, it influenced his Filipino brothers to do the same, and now you have these vast amounts of curriculum. And one of the concepts of Edgar Silite, who developed the Lameco system, la meaning largo, me meaning medio, co meaning corto, long, medium, close, was to be able to break in and out of all the ranges, which is very important. Another concept shared by Bruce Lee. Back to what we're going to be doing now, which is the middle range. We're going to look at several blocks. The first set, or what we call an abecedario set of blocks we're going to do, is what I like to call the box pattern blocks, okay? The stick is pointed up most of the time with these. So when Coach Joey gives me an angle 1, I'm going to inside deflection. Now, when I do the inside deflection in combat, I would attempt to smash the hand. Remember, always defanging the snake. Then follow up here. This Bante Kame, we talked about it earlier, is very important for stopping the force. This hopefully would smash his hand and he would drop it. But if it doesn't, and it can be very difficult to hit the hand there, what I have to do next is stop his force by pushing here. Otherwise, he's going to punch through and hit me. So that is an extremely important part of the blocking here done in the collar, is that checking. A successful block should sound like this. Not like this. That bouncing, you don't want that. You want to eliminate it. Also, an inside deflection, the stick sweeps, because the attempt was to smash the hand. This is not an inside deflection when you leave the stick up here. That is something different. So again, the inside deflection. Notice, if my stick's pointed up, my Bante Kame is on top, not on the bottom. Now, there are some instructors that will say you put it on the bottom. That's fine. Listen to them. Be respectful. I'm sure they have their reasons. But in our methodology, we put it on top. If my stick were pointed down, then my hand, my Bante Kame would go underneath. So again, one more time, the inside deflection, right here. The outside deflection, my hands are now open. I would try to smash the hand here, and as I'm coming across, again, I'm stopping the force here. One thing you don't want to do, and we're going to talk about footwork in a second, I'm going to bring you in a little closer, is you don't want to try and stay out here with any of these deflections. You're actually going to need to use your female triangle footwork and move in to get past the apex of that strike and to be able to counter and do the things you want to do. If I stay out here, it's very difficult to block that because it's dangerous. I'm still out here where the force of that stick is. So you need to use all these things in combination in order to really jam that attack. Angles 3 and 4 to block are identical to 1 and 2. In other words, the inside deflection here, look, the low line, it's the same thing. On the angle 2, here, on the angle 4, we drop stick here. And there's 2 different rules of thumb. One group says the palm goes on top. The other group says the palm goes on bottom. It's up to you. The group that says the palm goes on bottom is trying to get a disarm right away. And that's fine. If they can get it, more power to them. The group that goes on top likes to do that because they can then ride and snake here. More power to them. There are some that when they block here, they cut instead. That's not a drop stick though. So for our family, again, you've got the inside deflection here, the outside deflection here, low inside deflection, drop stick. Now, number 8. I'm sorry, let me go back, number 5. When he thrusts, stick still up, just like this. So if you looked at number 1, here, on the number 5, it's here. Now you notice I have to use my footwork now. Very important. You don't want to stay here on the thrust, but I parry across and check. Always checking. The checking hand is very important. From here, you see, you can get your disarms and your throws. One more time with the angle 5 block, parry, and check. Again, you could come back and hit. You could hit here. See, stripping, hitting, hitting, hitting. There are multiple ways to deal with that. On the angle 8, we do what is known as a roof shield. It's like the line of a roof. When you do this, don't ever put your hand up here. I did this once when I was training with one of my instructors, Guro Lee Peacock, and it smashed my fingers and it hurt very bad. You want to remember to keep the hand here checking his, so it's underneath. Typically when we do this, we wipe. You see him wipe, that way I can hold that, control it, hit, disarm, do whatever I want to do. For training, a lot of times we don't grab because we want them to be able to get their stick back so that we can perhaps return the shot and get as many repetitions in as possible. You will see that there's a tremendous amount of flow in the Filipino martial arts. All right? Those are the basic blocks. Keep in mind that every single one of them, even on the angle 8, go slow, I'm trying to smash that hand first, which is the principle of defanging the snake. And then we follow up after that. Okay, now we're going to go back and look at the deflections inside and outside, but we're going to add the footwork. I'm going to demonstrate the footwork quickly, and then I'm going to show you how to add it. Because this is a DVD, you're welcome to rewind it as many times as you want. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining it. In the Filipino martial arts, a lot of things are based on triangles. And one of the most basic fundamental triangles we use for footwork is the female triangle. If I'm standing here and it's facing away from me, that's the female triangle. I could step off this way. The technique would commonly be referred to as salit-salit, by bringing the feet together here and then stepping off. Hakban Tatsulak is when they walk the entire perimeter. That's also a good drill. But for most practical purposes, salit-salit will do. So we're going to add the salit-salit footwork to our abecedario. Abecedario is our ABCs. Well, what are we doing with that? Coach Joey is going to feed me angles 1 through 5, and I'm going to do the inside deflections in the middle range using the salit-salit. So we're going to start to combine several things together. So as Coach Joey gives me angle 1, I step off, see, away from the strike. I step back, he gives me the angle 2. See how I need to get in to really get past that power. He gives me the angle 3. Good. He gives me the angle 4. Good. He gives me the angle 5. See how important that is? Because I'm getting off the line of attack. If I were to step away on the angle 5, that's great, but I have no counterattack. So by using this angle, I'm still close enough, see, to counter, whether I'm going to do takedowns, thank you, sir, blocks, throws, whatever it is I want to do. So the point here being is that I want to move off the line of their attack while still staying in close enough range to recounter. And that's what the beautiful part about these female and male triangles. Later we'll get into the male triangle in the level 2, and we'll show you how to combine the two to come in and out of the range, and it's beautiful footwork. Works great. You see it in boxing, all kinds of different martial arts, wrestling. It's really good footwork. So again, one more time, Coach Joey feeds me the angle 1. I do the inside deflection. He feeds me the angle 2. See how important it is to get outside there. The 3, the 4. See, it's important to step deep. And the 5. And even if he gave me the 8, I could step off again this direction, or I could step off the other way. This would just be a bit awkward. All right. In that case, when he gave the 8, I would have to do a different type of block, a different type of roof shield, which we're not too worried about right now. So when he gives the 8, I would usually just step off this angle here. Okay? Keeping in mind about the defanging the snake. So again, sometimes when you're doing this, what you want to do is take your soft stick, and when he gives the angle 1, oh, I hit the hand. See that? Oh, I hit the hand. Good. See, hit the hand, hit the hand, hit the hand. Good. See, hit the hand. And sometimes you'll do this drill and you'll add your disarms to it when you guys learn them. And that's good as well. This is a very, very, very valuable drill. Thank you. Okay, now in the Kali, what we're going to be looking at is what we call contradas. In other words, I've blocked up to this point, I've moved out of the way, but now I want to hit back. And in the tradition of defanging the snake, that's where we're going to carry on. We're going to start from the angle 1, but I'm going to give you 7 from the angle 1 and 7 from the angle 2. What you have to understand is, if I can defend the angle 1 and do a contrada, I can defend the low line angle and do a contrada. So just by learning the 1 and the 2, any forehand or backhand strike is going to still work. In other words, he cuts up here. You see, it's still going to work. So it doesn't matter whether it's high, low, middle. It's as long as you learn a forehand and a backhand, you've got it. Now you will need to learn thrusting contradas as well, but we'll get to that. So the first angle 1 contrada. Guro Sean Joey is going to give me an angle 1. I do my inside deflection. Again, I would try and smash the hand. I'm going to hold the hand here as best I can. And I'm going to come diagonal down, hitting the fist. We're going to rotate so you can see this from a better angle. All right, how's that for our angle? Would you like us to move?
That's fine.
Okay, so he gives the angle 1. I block. Remember that checking hand? I can even slide over here and grab the pad of the thumb, and I go diagonal down. Now I feed Coach Joey. See? And he goes diagonal down. Beautiful. See that? Grab and diagonal down. That's your hit. Okay, and diagonal down. Your second contrada is to go horizontal across. Horizontal across. Good. See? Horizontal across. You can add in little things in your contradas. For instance, when I go here, I can smash with the puño first. Hit the puño here and then come across. There's little things like that. There are some instructors that will teach you to smash it here, see, and then come through. They're all about destroying the limb. Yeah, all about destroying the limb. So we've got diagonal down, horizontal across. Logically, the next one would be diagonal up. Good. Good. And we're using the inside deflection on all of these. Excuse me for a second while I check my notes. Okay, the next one, when we do this, will be the Witticks. So when he gives the angle 1, I will inside deflection and Wittick. I'm not going to leave my hand here at this point. In other words, when I inside deflection, I smashed here, I pushed here pretty hard, and I clear my own hand so I can insert that hit. For the sake of training, though, I'm going to tap Coach Joey's stick. So when he gives me that, see, I tap his stick. When I give it to him here, yes, just like that. And that motion's called an abanico, which means fan. We'll get more into it later. Don't worry too much about it right now. You just want to be able to tap that good. See, so inside check here, and see, it's just like this, right there. Good. Now, if I can go on the inside here, I could also go on the outside, because there's a good chance when I do this that my stick wound up on the outside of Coach Joey's stick. So instead I have to fire it here. Now in this case we don't have a stick to hit, so we just feed it out here in the air. Stay far away from your partner's head. And sometimes it may tap there. Better to tap there than anywhere else. Good. Good. Just like that. Beautiful. See? Just like that. Excellent contradas. This may very well end the fight, or at least set you up for your disarm, which is what you want to do next. Then, from here, you have your thrusts. So, real basic. If my stick winds up on the outside, I thrust on the outside. Again, try to stay away. Beautiful feed from the face. If, when I block, my stick still stays on the inside, then I thrust on the inside. Yes, just like that, see? See, it may stay on the inside. Good. Or it may go to the outside. Good. You could obviously combine hit and thrust. See? Hit and thrust. Good. You could combine at the point to hit, thrust, and slice back through. Again, how do you make this work? You're going to say, well, the guy's not going to hold his arm out there that long. You're right, but if you notice, Coach Joey or Guro Joey and I are grabbing the hand. You see, we're grabbing here. Yeah, he's not going to tolerate that probably for very long, which means I'm going to have to check this. And our next drill, we're going to deal with that hand in just a second. Now let's move on to the angle 2 contradas. On the angle 2 contradas, notice I'm using my footwork. The first one, I check his arm palm on underneath, and I hit over top. On the second one, I check his hand palm on top, and I still hit. So in the contrada, the variation is my palm that receives. It's not this. This does the same thing both times. So one more time. See, palm down and hit versus palm up and hit. The reason are the disarms. Because if I go palm on top and hit, I disarm this way. But if I go palm under a lot of times, see, I'm going to go through that way. The next ones for the angle 2, flexion palm up. Excuse me a second while I check my notes. Oh, the thrusts. Thrusting from the inside and thrusting from the outside, because you never know where your stick's going to end up. So if I feed, yes, beautiful. And again, the stick may travel through. And the same as before, there are valuable disarms in all of these, which I'm not going to show you all of them right now. We'll get into a tape of some serious disarms in a little while. From here, we then have the checking. So far we've done 4. Let me explain. We did here palm up and hit, same thing, palm down and hit, and we had 2 variations to the thrust. Either the stick was on the outside or the stick was on the inside. Now, the next series of these, I don't do an outside deflection. I don't do this. I'm just going to check with this hand. So when he comes, see the split? Dangerous, but extremely effective. This can check the hand or obviously hit the face. Extremely effective. The next one after that is they check and they hit low. See? Like this, so it's the leg. So again, they can hit here and check, hit low and check, or one of my favorites is they come up underneath and then on top. Works very well because if you watch the range, see as I'm trying to get out of range there, that works very, very well. Alright? That should be approximately 7. You can add another one. One that I've seen Guro talk about before is that they hit either here or they check here and then they just whip this through on the low line. So the object, when they check that here, see, and then they like that and they're trying to get the midsection. So there's 7 contradas. Now the contradas are going to set up or give you the ability to start to grab, to counter, at least try and neutralize your opponent, because remember, you're trying to smash his arm, trying to get that weapon out of his hand. One thing we didn't talk about that I need to mention on all of these blocks, if I'm in long range, let's do long range abecedario, you're feeding 1 through 5.
1 through 5.
So, are we okay with the camera angle? All right, here, okay? And I want to crash in. He's too good here, we're moving around, and I'm not getting it. When I go to do this, that's where your footwork, you've got to really be able to crash. That's why we do those female triangle footwork drills. That's a crash. Every block we do is a crash, transitioning that range. Okay? Very important. All right, thank you, sir. Okay, now we're going to look at how to deal with the rear hand. A lot of you may have been looking at especially the inside deflection up to now and saying, well, this is great, but what do I do with that hand? I'm going to get my teeth knocked out of my mouth. And we said earlier that Kali is about watching both hands. So I'm going to give you 3 ways to handle the rear hand, and from there I want you to discover and research your own. So the first one, when I do the inside deflection, my hand is on the, notice it's on the inside of Coach Joey's when he punches. So what I do is what we call wah, slick, or scoop. Notice the chambering of my stick, which puts that right there for a nice hit, and another nice hit here. Again, here, the hand's on the inside, I scoop. As I rake this through, I either hit on top, or I can hit on the inside. I could hit the body, I could hit the face as I come through. Again, same thing. Here, scooping it just like that. Good. Again. Checking, scooping and hitting. Good. Now you could make it a back and forth drill, or more like a sombrado. So he does it, I scoop and hit, now I feed. I punch, he scoops and hits. See, he feeds. I block, I scoop and hit. I feed. See, scoop and hit. That's the first way. That's a sector, let me explain. When I pick up his hand here, there are 2 basic sectors. Either I'm on the inside or I'm on the outside. So the second sector that I want to pick up from here when I do this is the outside. And as I do, I just do a high cover or salute. And I wipe through and hit. He can do the same. See, high covers, good. And he can hit. You can also do more of what we would call a tan sao. That's fine. Depends on what you're more comfortable with. Good. Make sure to follow up with the strike. Now, in this, there's one more. Be very careful when you train this. When he does the angle 1, I'm going to whip my stick through. It's more than likely because I'm either trying to hit his leg to disrupt him, the arm, remember your contrada, all right, or the body, still part of your contradas, and he punches. Now look, I pick it up with the puño end of the stick. See, grab and hit, you have a takedown here. So again, when he hits, see, whipping through, now when he punches, I can pick that up. Now at this point I'm going to add a little bit more of the footwork so you can see how this would look. Alright, so when he gives the angle 1 here, see, and I whip this through, when I scoop that, I want to come out here. I always want to circle to the outside if I can. See, staying out here. If that other hand comes back through, that's fine. I'm still prepared to take it, you see, because that's how Kali works. It computes all of these angles, all right? But the idea is learning to deal with that rear hand, and this will improve your empty hand. If you're a cage fighter and you're watching this right now and you're going, I'd never use this in a cage fight, you're wrong. You will, because if we're empty hand here, and I parry his lead hand here, I need to be ready for that next hand. Doesn't matter what type of motion, I can jam it right there. We call that jamming the gun. Now I can shoot, elbow, smash, do whatever I want, but I'm learning to watch for that rear hand every time by doing the stick training in this drill specifically. Thank you, sir. All right. So that was on the angle 1. The angle 2, we have a series as well. So when Coach Joey gives me the angle 2, I do my outside deflection. I put my stick down on his arm because remember how we talked about the contrada right here. he's going to punch. I pick up from the outside first and hit. And obviously we would be doing our footwork there. Again, one more time. Outside here, put the stick down. When he punches, I pick it up and hit here. The second variation I have is I can put the stick down, and when it comes, I pick it up on the inside. Now let me rotate Coach Joey a little bit. There we go. So he gives the angle 2. When I put this down and that comes, see how I split it right there? We usually refer to that as sagong. All right, and then from there I can scoop the arm back over, hit, try to go to the rear and take the next opponent. The third way is that I don't even get a chance to put the stick down here. I do the outside deflection, and that other hand comes and I pick it up with the puño again. So we're right back there. There are more ways than this, but it's up to you to discover them. Practice these drills back and forth. You can mix them. For instance, I give Coach Joey the 1, and then I'm going to give him the punch. Do any counter you want to the punch. Good. He gives me the angle 1. Good. He gives me the punch. Good. Now we do angle 1 and 2. When I do the 2, now he counters it here. You see, now he gives me the 1, 2. And on the 2, see how it forces me to close the gap there. You see? And that's how we're starting to move the drills and combine them together. Don't be afraid to play in Kali. Again, we have that saying Kali Antao or Kali Likao, which is you are Kali. All right? So play with it, experiment, and you will discover it, and you will get better. What works for him may not work for me. Guru Nasanto, one of our teachers, has told us there were never any instructor he had that was in agreement. And it's still that way. All of my Filipino instructors, they totally disagree. But I'm respectful. I come in and they say, your footwork's all wrong. Who have you been training with? I go, well, I'm sorry. How am I supposed to do it? And I listen, because I never know when I might need to use their footwork for a situation. Okay? And that's basically it. So we're going to get ready for the next drill. Through that, I started training soldiers in the 10th Mountain Division. And if we have a moment, I'd like to read one of the commendations that was written from First Lieutenant Scott Horgan, who's now with the Special Forces. I can't say what unit or group he's with, but at the time he was with the 10th Mountain Division. He said, "To whom it may concern, I am honored to write this letter and recommend Sean Hurst to you. I served with Sergeant Hurst for over 2 years as both his rifle and anti-tank platoon leader during Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. During this period, Sergeant Hurst continually impressed me with both his ability to train soldiers in hand-to-hand combat and his exemplary leadership while conducting combat missions. He was an unquestionable asset to the United States Army. Sergeant Hurst was instrumental in training over 30 soldiers in my platoon in combatives. Now, the word combatives usually means hand-to-hand combat. He trained young soldiers in both Jeet Kune Do and Filipino Kali. Sergeant Hurst has a tremendous amount of skill and has the ability to both challenge well-trained soldiers as well as brand new people who've never trained in arts before. So in other words, what he's saying is, I had the ability to train people with no experience and those with years of experience and still challenge both. Sergeant Hurst was commended so highly by other officers and NCOs in his unit that he was asked to continue to train soldiers and combatives even while conducting combat operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. On more than one occasion, Sean provided himself as a selfless leader and a quiet professional. Upon arriving in Afghanistan, Sean began a combat tour of patrolling cordon and searches and ground assault convoys. Over the next year, through all the hundreds of missions, despite landmines, ambushes, casualties, and losses, he continued to lead from the front and never accept failure. Sean impressed me so much that I chose him to lead and operate a gun truck crew during Operation Alpine Vengeance, the most grueling and difficult mission conducted by our task force. And then it just talks about some of the awards that I was given through that time. I'd like to read one more article. Some of this is blacked out. I can't give some of this information. And I think it's important because during this time period in my life, it kind of explains what I went through my combat experience. And I think that's important for people who are watching these training DVDs so they understand the perspective from which my experience comes from. While deployed, this is a statement on behalf of Sergeant Sean C. Hurst, written by one of my commanders, Dwight E. Phillips, Captain in Commanding. And Captain Phillips writes, statement on behalf of Sean C. Hurst, purpose. While deployed in Afghanistan with, can't describe the unit, Sergeant Hurst was present at several events which exposed him to enemy fire and explosive ordnance. During September and October of a certain year, the Joint Task Force 180 QRF required the unit to be prepared to load helicopters within 15 minutes of an alert order. These requirements kept the soldiers at an extreme state of readiness 24 hours a day, which was further amplified by frequent alerts, rehearsals, and combat missions. During November 2003, Sergeant Hurst participated in Operation Mountain Resolve. This operation began with a ground assault convoy. That basically means we drove up to attack the enemy on a route that was frequently attacked by IEDs, improvised explosive devices, so constantly we were being hit by roadside bombs. While at the fire base we established, Sergeant Hurst was present for several rocket attacks. One rocket attack was coordinated with a direct fire attack. Also during this time, a specific unit, again I can't give the name of, convoy was struck by an IED, killing one of the soldiers. Sergeant Hurst participated in the cordon search that immediately followed, while that convoy was struck by an IED, killing one of the soldiers. Sergeant Hurst participated in the cordon search that immediately followed the IED site. Finally, Sergeant Hurst participated in several cordon search operations which required him to negotiate some extremely dangerous mountain terrain. Essentially, Sergeant Hurst participated in 27 days of continuous combat operations under a constant state of threat and readiness. Now, to summarize that, we were bombed and rocketed every day. There wasn't a break. There wasn't a typical war movie where you see, now I literally have something in my eye, where you see bunkers, men have to run into. There was nothing. We were working with different units that I can't give out information about. And these types of units, we don't build bunkers because we're not even supposed to be in the area where we are. We're trying to hide. So building a bunker would make it pretty obvious that you were there. So when you're receiving what's known as a 107 rocket or a 120, you're receiving mortar fire, you're receiving this kind of stuff, the only thing you literally have to do is lay down on top of your men and hope that somebody gets saved in the process. So it's pretty interesting combat. From January to March of 2004, Sergeant Hurst served with a different unit during our operations in this province. During this time, the company was attacked on 4 separate occasions with roadside bombs. 3 of these attacks caused injuries, including the death of another member of Sergeant Hurst's platoon. Sergeant Hurst was often, I haven't read this in a while. Sergeant Hurst was often one of the first soldiers on the scene to secure the site and treat the wounded soldiers. Throughout these attacks, Sergeant Hurst continued to participate in mounted combat patrols, often frequenting the sites of previous attacks. Sergeant Hurst was one of the top 3 out of 18 team leaders in my company. His performance of duty was exemplary. Sergeant Hurst was often volunteered for the most difficult missions. He was known among his peers for his positive attitude. Anyway, and then it just goes on to, I'm not going to brag about myself, but it just goes on to talk about some other stuff we did. The point being is that during a lot of these attacks, these weren't what people think of warfare. Oh, there's the enemy, here we are. You just kind of line up and you start shooting. It's, there I am, I'm being ambushed, I'm being attacked, and now I have to react to my training. Now, one of the things that did for me, obviously, besides giving him a combat mentality, was it taught me something. It taught me that the training that the U.S. military gave us was very good. In the United States military, we don't go out once a week and shoot one another in the leg and go, hey, Tony, now you know what it's like to be shot. Go ahead and shoot me so I can feel that. Okay, that's good training. Next week, we're going to do the same thing. We don't take live animals out, raise them up, and shoot them and kill them just so that we can see what it feels like to kill another living being, whether human or otherwise. Most of our training is weapons maintenance. In other words, we're polishing and cleaning our weapons. That's probably a good portion percentage-wise, I'd say 35 to 45%. Probably the remaining percentage of that is target practice, shooting at targets, whether moving or stationary, and a lot of that is stationary to 0, and then qualifying on moving targets. Again, these are plastic dummies. These aren't things that are real. 5% of our overall training deals with live munitions, where we do drills 2 or 3 times a year when we're not in combat, where we go down range and there's real bullets flying from my friends and they're shooting at targets just like I am, and we're moving up to an objective where we throw live hand grenades into the building, we blow the door, well, flashbangs into the building, we blow the doors, we enter into the rooms. One mistake from one idiot firing into a window on the wrong side and you've got a dead soldier. The idea here is the coordination, the mass coordination is designed to get the soldiers ready for combat so that we can reduce friendly fire. Now let's look at this. Live bullets, live hand grenades sometimes you have tanks, Apaches depending on the mission, flashbangs, a lot of stuff that could kill somebody. How often during the year do we do this kind of training? Or did I say the percentage was? About 5%. 5%. When we relate that to hand-to-hand combat, 5% of your overall training, in my opinion, should be full-on sparring without safety protection. The remainder of it should be some type of training with safety protection. I'm not saying don't spar. Sparring is great. But sparring like drills, or what we call sombratas, things that are kind of a give and take, are far better because it reduces injury, allows the soldiers to be able to stay in combat, and starts to bring out that reaction that they really need in the event that the pressure's there. Now, people say, well, you have to add some type of pressure because otherwise you don't know how they react in combat. Here's the secret. You still won't know. I've trained with SEALs and other guys whose names I'm not going to mention, and every single one of them will admit to me the same thing, that there were guys on their teams that no matter how, after all the training and special operations things that they did, those guys didn't shoot back when it was time to shoot. It doesn't matter how much pressure you add to the situation, you don't know what you're going to do. And sometimes the pressure can be too great and they either snap or they end up getting hurt or killed. There have been newspaper articles about soldiers get killed in training all the time. Our military is one of the greatest militaries in the world. What I'm saying here is that the training methods, this is how I feel about training methods. The training methods should be something that is done to, at certain times it's appropriate to spar full out, and at other times it's appropriate to drill, and in my opinion, 85 to 90% of the time it should be drills versus actual full-on gladiator type combat. Okay, the next set of drills we're going to do are what are known as sombratas. Sombrata means to shade or to counter to counter. So these drills specifically go back and forth, whereas Abecedario, when Joey and I fed each other, one person attacked the whole time, the other person defended the whole time. In this case, we're going to go back and forth attacking and defending. In the Tribe K school, we have about 12 main sombratas, and there are sub-areas to those. There are over 125 different sombratas used by Filipino martial arts schools. This is one of the basic ones that we start with. So what we're going to do is, the first one is called punta y punta, or dungabi dungab, sometimes saksaki saksak. It just means thrusting. So we're going to thrust back and forth and learn to counter the thrusting. So as we thrust, the first basic thrust is to parry. It's parrying down. It can also be to do what's called waslick, or to scoop. Sometimes, if you get lucky and the guy has a loose grip, you'll flip it out of his hand. With a blade, this can still be done. The second motion, or technique, is coming up. We like to call that the bolo because of the famous bolo strike developed by Seferino Garcia, who's a Pinoy boxer. Now, he didn't use a stick, but the motion is there. And that's coming up underneath. Notice when we do that, we don't come up and go way up here and then thrust back. It's just enough to hit and then travel back up. If the blade were here, I would cut this way and then I'd have to turn. Alright? Just like this. The next one we typically do is parry from the outside. This would actually be parrying and hitting the hand here. See, parrying and hitting the hand, or hitting the hand and then parrying. But we like to go to the stick. So it could be stick, hand, stick. Actually, that was backwards. It could be hand, stick, hand, or stick, hand, stick. That's a little bit redundant, so we usually just pick it up 2 shots. Again, back here is great. Now in combat, where they even hook it harder so that when it's coming, they catch it here, this would go to the face or the eyes in the thrusting. Then we have what's known as the cambiata. You roll it. You meet it on the inside and roll it. Meet it on the inside. As I'm pushing, I roll over. Hard to teach on a tape when you're feeling the energy. This is good when you're in class to ask about. Okay. Cambiata. The next one is a gunting. Now with the gunting, which is a scissor motion, the next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to thrust back at Coach Joey this way. He is going to handle it like that. So I'm going to thrust now. I want him to gunting. When it comes, remember the wasp lick when we picked up the punch earlier? I wasp lick and I catch this from here. In Kali, we rarely unchamber our hands. What I mean is this. If you notice, if my hands are chambered, I leave them chambered and I receive. So he can handle that any way he wants. So if he feeds here and I chamber my hands like this, notice I leave them chambered and I fire right from there. That's one of the more complicated ones. So then we just go and we parry and we do any of these counters that we want. We go back and forth. Sometimes you can step back and forth. As I thrust, I step in. As he thrusts, I step back. All right, this is a sombrata, one of the most basic. Good. Excellent. Good. Good. And that's the basis of the Dungabi Dungab sombrata. So today we are going to deal with Mosa sombrata. As we're doing the sombrata, what we're going to be doing now is puño and puño. Now this is moving to a much closer range. And this is not hubad, which is usually what that drill is called, or he got hubad lubad, or he kut hubad lubad. This is a precursor to it. So there's 3 basic counters in the puño y puño. When we feed, we can stop, and as Coach Joey feeds, stop. So it's just a stopping motion. There's a passing motion, and there's that hambak or rolling motion, very similar to the cambiata, which you will see a lot in the Kali. And we can mix this up as we go. He can say he wants to do that, and I say, no, I still want to do this. I want to pass here. He wants to do that, oh, maybe I want to do the wave too. Watch out when you do the wave. Let me explain. When you're with the beginning level student, sometimes they have a tendency to put the stick there. So what I do to counter that is when I wave, I put my hand here. That way if that stick starts to travel towards my head, my hand checks that. That's very important. See, that way if that, yeah, it checks that. See that? It checks that. Very important. See? Stopping. It may be that as I try to stop Joey, his force is so hard, I can't, so I have to let the force pass. See, it doesn't work. Or you just want to hambak him. Because as you do that, oftentimes you have a nice opening here. All right. Passing. Now, in this drill, we can combine back the drill we were doing. The easiest way to do it is here on the parry. I step back and draw, and now look, I can thrust. And now he can thrust. He can do any thrusting counter he wants. See, he can do any thrusting counter he wants. Good. To get back, the easiest way is that when I parry that, I come in. I know, don't do hubad yet. It's tempting. See, and we're back in here, and I'll let you break in and out too at your own discretion. That's it, good. See, so he thrusts. Good. 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 Sorry. And these are the 2 basic sombratas mixed together. Following the tradition of the sombratas, we're now going to do higat, hubad, lubad, which typically means to tie, untie, and the blending of the two. In Tagalog dialogue, it also means to undress, so it depends on the dialogue that people are speaking. What we mean is to tie and untie. It's another sombrata. We're going back and forth. It's a drill. In other words, it's like taking a fan, if you wanted to increase your speed, turning it on low, and learning to time it so you could insert your hand in between the blades. And as you sped the fan up, you learn to time it, you can increase your speed by putting your hand through there quicker and quicker. Hubad is a drill, and it allows us to do different things. We're going to learn to be able to insert punches, elbows, strikes, grabs, locks, throws, if I haven't mentioned that already, chokes. But you have to start with something, so it's just a drill. There are many ways to do this drill. We're just going to show the base of it. The first part of this drill is driven by a puño strike down. Coach Joey blocks. Notice how he uses the inside of the arm. That's important because if this were a blade, which it will be later on, a knife, he wouldn't want the inside of the arm there because of the artery cut. So he always tips it this way. He's going to come up from the outside and salute. Notice the clicking of the stick, because that would actually be the hitting of the hand in combat. Always hitting the hand. Salutes or parries, and then traps or monitors, because he doesn't want me to sneak in a low shot. And now I do the same thing. I block, hit, lift or parry, depending on what you want to call it, and check, and I return. Block, lift, check, return. See that? When you start doing this, we're going to take it, speed up a little. You will hear 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 rhythm. That's what you want. Good. Can get a little old after a while with the sticks, but it's a very good drill. We're going to rotate a little, just for the camera angle, and we're going to slow it back down. Parry. Again, the hit could be from way down here, but in this case we're doing it up here. Lift, trap, hit. Is that okay right there, Guro Tony? Sure. And now we'll rotate a little more. There are many adjectives to this. There are so many it's not even funny. I could feed here. See, you can add all kinds of adjectives. Good. See, it doesn't matter. You can add all kinds of stuff in here. For right now, though, you can add the low line strikes. There's all kinds of stuff. Good. You can break into different sombratas. But for right now, we're just trying to show the hubad. Now, let's go back and look at the punta y punta, or the thrusting, the puño y puño, and the hubad together, and see how we can break in and out of the ranges, because that's really important in the Kali. Isn't just the drill, but the ability to mix them and blend the ranges. So if we start with the thrusting, good, and we can break in and out at your discretion or mine, it doesn't matter. Good, that's it, good, see? See how we can break into that? Good. Good, see, I might come back, yeah. There it is, good, beautiful. Good. Good. Yeah, we're breaking into other drills here. Sorry about that, I apologize. Start breaking into other sombratas. But the idea, again, is the ability to be able, that's it, beautiful, to break in and out of the ranges. That's it, nice. There you go. Okay? Yeah, what other questions did you have? I'm sorry, I kind of got off on a tangent there.
After you left the military, where did you further your education, or do you immediately start teaching? Or?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, while I was in the military, I got permission from Guru Lee Peacock, who I'd only trained with for about 2.5 years at the time in college, Jeet Kune Do and combat submission wrestling, to teach what I knew to the military. And just what I knew, nothing more than that. In other words, I wasn't putting on a front that I was a certified instructor, and he was fine with that. In the process, I also got certified in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under the military's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program. We have a 3-phase program that we do there. I also met up with a man by the name of Israel Cruz, Ellis Bryant, who is a huge, just monster of a man. I'd watched the guy bench press 600 pounds, cage fighter, fought a few amateur cage fight events. The guy that he fought, I think the article's still on the internet, the guy said that Ellis made him see fire when Ellis punched him. Ellis lost the match at a technicality, but he should have won. I think he still may be fighting cage matches to this day somewhere in Canada. So I met up with several of these soldiers, and we all kind of cross-trained at the local military gym. So I always furthered my training. I also started training with Merton Richardson in his distance learning course, and I formed what was back then called a performance group. I was the head of that performance group, and what I did was I started training about 7 or 8 other soldiers in the performance group. We would train in a gym we set up, and we would train 3 to 4 days a week. After doing this for a while, I set up my very first school, HAMA, Hurst Academy of Martial Arts, where my wife, myself, and one of the other soldiers, Coach Danny, I met, started training MPs and other soldiers, and they loved it so much it grew. We didn't technically have permission to teach inside the military gym. You have to go through the there's a resource section you have to go through, but the gym people loved us so much, and the people who were training enjoyed the training so much that it was just one of those things that was kind of overlooked. They just went, when somebody would go down and complain, be a sergeant major go down and complain, these guys aren't allowed to be down there doing that. They go, oh yeah, whatever, sergeant major, will take care of it. And then it would just kind of be brushed under the carpet. From there, I continued my training through seminars. That's when I started really hitting a lot of seminars through Guro Nasanto, of which now I probably have about 80 hours of seminar training under him, which if you look at that, that's, you know, the average class is 1 hour. You know, somebody takes, I don't know, eight classes a month. That's several months of trainings. Again, I came back to Jacksonville after leaving the military. I was wounded in 2004, was out by 2005. And I started my own school, the Academy of Combative Evolution, with Danny Moraney and a couple other guys from the military, at which time we started training again with Lee Peacock, Brian Garona, and that's when I linked up with Guro Kenny Berry. And Sifu Peacock and I started training a little bit together, but because he had sold his school, Sifu Kenny Berry and Sifu Brian Garona and I started spending a tremendous amount of time training. And this is where I really learned a lot about the double stick of our art from Sifu Kenny Berry. He taught me a lot about the organization of the art. I knew it, but at this point, I had taken so many private lessons from Lee Peacock, and he had taught me so much about the Inosanto La Costa method, but I didn't really understand the structure, I think, and I think it was Sifu Kenny Berry who really helped me, and Sifu Brian Garona who really helped me to understand the view. And sometimes I would go in and show them a drill, and I would go, here's the drill, and they would go, no, the drill is this way, and then we would all come to the realization, or they would, and in my ignorance I would figure this out later, that not only can it be done ... high, it can be done ... low, it can be done ... high on this side, low on this side. So in other words, we started to see variables open up. You know, oh, there's more than one way to do these drills. We were just really starting to discover the art. We were starting to break away from just the drills themselves. And then through that, Guro Brian Garona encouraged me to train with other instructors, where I met Guru Grandmaster Tom Sippen of the Doce Paras method, who I had the privilege of training with. He came down and did a seminar. I had the privilege of doing several hours of private lessons with him in his method, and that was just wonderful. I met Guru Anthony Sell. And then from there, I just try to train with as many different instructors as I possibly can. Train with Guru Andy Zavales, train with different Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructors, started training with just all kinds of guys. And you know, one of the biggest things I learned was that I was learning more from my students than I really was learning from all these instructors, because when the students would ask questions that I didn't have an answer for, it would force me to search out the answer. Or sometimes they would show me things that I had never even thought of. They would give me answers to you know, they'd say, well, have you ever seen this? And I go, no, I've never even seen that before. So currently, other than the Inosanto La Costa method, I've also studied the Doce Pares method. I've studied a little bit of the modern Arnis. And I've also studied under Filipino combat systems, and I've studied under certified instructors in each of these. Also recently started studying with Guro, or Gura Levon Martin, as we affectionately call her. She's really opened up my eyes to see things that I didn't see before, much like Guro Kenny Berry. When we do a drill, we'll do the drill and she'll go, great, now if you can do it that way, can you do it this way? And I'll go, I don't know, I never even considered that. You know, how many 6 to 7 ways, how many other ways can you do it? If you can do it with the right hand, can you do it with the left? If you could pick it up with the puño, can you pick it up with the puña? You know, if you can do it this way, can you do it that way? And she really encourages us to really grow. And I think she's one of the great instructors that are out there under Guro Inosanto. Joel Clark as well. Really, really, really fantastic instructors. Same thing with Sifu Dwight Woods. Just really all of these instructors, I mean, so much to offer, so much to offer. So I've really enjoyed training with all of them. And of course, again, I want to dedicate this tape to Guro Dan Inosanto, because he's just been such an inspiration to me over the years in my training. Okay, now we're going to look at disarming, typically called agaw, and there are different types of agaws. There are snaking types, there are ones called vine, there are strips, there are crushing or pinching types, there are some that use leverage. There are many, many, many different families. Today we're going to look at the snake. And I think the snake is a good one because it teaches you how to wrap up the arm so they can't use it. It has additional takedowns and locks added with it, and it can be used many different ways. The only thing that the snake, I think, is not as efficient for is a blade, and you'll see that as we start to do it. You get cut up. It would have to be with a blunt object only. Works great against a baseball bat, a stick, you know, rattan stick, anything like that, but a blade, it may be a bit dangerous to attempt to do that way. So, if we look at from the middle range, all right, and I block, let's say on an inside deflection here from Coach Joey, that Bente Kame, that alive hand, is going to snake around Coach Joey's arm. As it comes up, I want to grab here. Right there. Make sure you grab. Grab, 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 right there. Make sure you grab the arm there. That's very important. I'm going to do it again. So as I do the disarm here, notice my stick, remember, proper inside deflection, what does my stick do? It travels through. You see how it dropped? It's going to drop down low so it doesn't get caught in here. And I grab here. What I would want to do from here, the simplest snake, would be to turn that out. When I do so, things I don't want to do. I do not want to turn my back to Guro Joey. I don't want to do this when I'm doing it. He's going to choke me. He may retain his own stick and choke me. You see, if we do that again, I come here and I try to turn, he may retain his own stick, and oh, if he's got a knife, it's even worse. He's now stabbing me in the back. So when I do this technique, I want to always be facing him, sectoring away. Now I'm not going to move again. I don't want to do too much footwork and you lose me in the camera angle. But here, remember to push. You snake around. This should hit. It's a great thing to do. You can even hit up. And this simply strips out like that. Now once you have the arm, you've got plenty of takedowns, chokes, stuff you can do. You can just hit. Or my favorite thing to do, run. All right. I fought in a lot of wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. I have been in a few street confrontations, and I'm going to tell you, if you can run, it's the best thing for you these days, because unfortunately you beat the guy up and he's going to go get his 5 buddies with their automatic weapons. You don't need that. If you can avoid the conflict at all costs, avoid it. So again, with the snake here, snaking around, remember to grab this. Why, you ask? If he doesn't let go, I have a beautiful takedown here and control. See, I can leave this in and lock. This is what we call branch up. I would step over to control, and this would be the break. All right, so if we rotate here, this would be the break. In Kali, our grappling is called Dumog. And in Dumog, what we try to do is stay up more. Knee in the belly, stay up on our knees. We try not to go down on the guy in controlling positions like Yoko Shiogatame, Keisagatame, or grappling positions, because it's multiple attacker environment. I don't want to be too committed to him. He may have a knife, and I don't want to be that close. If he pulls it out, he's going to stab me. So again, even if I take the weapon away here during the snake, I can still put that back in there for the takedown. So it's vitally important to grab the wrist. Okay, assists. Sometimes you get that big, burly, strong guro, like Guro Tony, and this is not going to be enough. This may work, but chances are that's just not going to cut it. So how do we do this? We have 5 basic assists. The first assist would be to take my stick and hit with my stick as I push through. The second basic assist would be as I check the hand and snake to use my forearm. Now in training, watch out, because that's going to hit. Beautiful in combat, that's exactly what you want. When I do this in training, I also, as I hit and pass through, tend to scoop. Now for me, that sets up for more advanced techniques. So when I'm here, and I hit here and I scoop, it tends to set up for the hits here. You see, now I've got the uppercuts, and I can move into some of the more advanced locking or throwing. All right. So we've got assisting by the stick here. We've got assisting by the forearm, and the forearm while it's scooping. I can also assist by punching with my fist, although I would be very careful about this because the stick's a hard object. If you hit hard bone here, you may crush your fingers. All right. I can assist by pushing down. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and one more 5, which is the puño itself. Just hitting there and pushing through. And again, once you do that, following up and hitting. Okay. From the angle 2, the snake goes clockwise here. Sometimes you will get a guy in training that it's very difficult to get that out because he has this tendency to kind of roll the wrist around here. Yeah, starts to get kind of wise or funny with you. So there's a way to counter that. Watch your face and I'll explain. I'm going to go slow. When I go here, what I do as soon as I lock it here is I hook my puño here and I pull that. If you pull it hard enough, it's going to eject it right into his face. Okay? Very important. You can catch the snake on virtually any angle. You can catch it on the 2, see here, ejecting that out. You could catch it on a 3 down here, see, eject it out, it doesn't matter. You could catch it on an 8, you see, here, it doesn't matter, ejecting it out. It's a very good disarm. You can do it empty-handed. So when he comes with that, see, it's pat here first, remember, check. All right, pat. Wrap around, pat it out. I'm going to go down to the ground. You can take it out with your feet. Tell me when you're ready. I'm going to come in close. If I get knocked over in a confrontation, all right, and he tries to hit with that, I want to check again, see, and there's the disarm. It's a good idea to practice it. You never know when you're going to be on the ground. When you understand the principles, the rest becomes very easy. So that is the snake disarm. Okay, now we're going to work on our double stick curriculum for the level 1 in the Tribe K Kali. When we do our double stick curriculum, oftentimes people refer to this as Sinawali, and it is. That comes from a specific area of the Philippines, and that particular tribe, Sinawali to them wasn't just double stick, and it wasn't just double stick weaving drills. It was single stick and it had other elements. But nowadays the term is used generally to refer to double stick drills. For this level, we're going to be doing everything open count. Okay, so everything's open count. It's going to progress in a manner that's very mathematical. In other words, the first strike is 1, the second set of strikes is 2, the third is 3. That way you know if you're on number 5, there's got to be 5 hits in that pattern. All right, and this is an open count pattern. It's for coordination. Again, I'm not going to be in Walmart, see my arch nemesis Guro Joey across the way. I whip out my double stick, he whips out his, and we go to fighting. It's not going to happen. If it does, videotape it and send it to me. What probably will happen is that if I get into a fight, I learn how to use my hands crossing and uncrossing and hitting. I'm learning to develop power and coordination both with my left and right hand. Now that doesn't mean I can't find a broomstick somewhere, kick it in half, if I'm on the next plane that some moron terrorist tries to take over with a box cutter and go to whooping his butt with a pair of sticks. It's just, it's not likely that you're going to meet him stick to stick. But these are still awesome coordination drills for cage fighters, boxers, anybody. So the first one in the series is what we call Pai or Cob. That's going to be a hit and a hit. Typically, and it's just 1 on each side, typically the way they used to do this was there were 6 hits total. It was hit, 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 just like that, and they'd go over and over again. So it'd be hit, 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 hit. And that's a little bit redundant, and Guro Sean's knees are getting old, so we just do 2. The second series is the X, and we want to make sure, like Guro Joey's doing, that we face each other. In other words, when we do the X, see how we face each other? Real important. So we're going to go back, we do the Pai, Cob, then the X. There's the first one. There's the second one. So obviously the next one has to have 3 strikes. This one is called high-low high, or entry 3, all right, or sometimes entry y tatlo, which is the same thing, entry 3, all right, entrada y tatlo. So entry 3 is high, low, high. Now when we do this, this is a lob tick. Remember what we talked about earlier, it slices through. This is a wit tick, it hits and retracts, and the other high one slices through. This is a good drill when you're starting to learn to just take and isolate all by itself and do for a few minutes. So we're just going to do it for a few seconds. So we go high, low, high. Good. 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 That's it. Good. Good. And you'll notice that Guro Joey and I start moving the forward leg back. That's because the idea is that low strike is trying to hit the lead leg. So we're moving that lead leg out of the way when it comes. And you can do that in the drill as well. That's just adding some of the footwork. So now we're going to go back, start from the beginning, and we're going to do the Pai, Cob, the Ikis or the X, and high, low, high. And we're going to revolve that around, the first 3, several times. So we go 1, 1, 2, 2, high, low, high, low, high, 1, X, X, high, low, high, low, high, 1, 1, X, X, high, low, high. Beautiful. Now we're going to add the 4th one. The 4th one is a downward X, followed by an upward X, cutting. Make sure when you do this, I don't have a sword on me today, you are cutting, when you cut upwards like you have a sword. Pretend like your knuckles are the blade and cut upwards. Don't do this. Nah, that's not right. You want to cut up. You cut up. Same thing on the other side. You cut up, you cut up. All right, very, very important. So we do the downward X, upward X. Downward X, upward X. Downward X, upward X. Beautiful. Now we're going to add that 4 count back into the series. We'll rotate it around. So Good time. The next one in the series is what we call a windshield wiper. It's just called that because it looks kind of like a windshield wiper sometimes when you do it. It doesn't have any other meaning than that. So we go 3 strikes on the high line. 1, 2, 3. A low backhand with tick, just like high, low, high. And then a high lob tick. And then the same on the other side. 1, 2, 3. Low backhand with tick, lob tick. So it's all lob ticks, 1 whip tick. Lob tick, lob tick, lob tick, whip tick, lob tick. Same. Lob tick, lob tick, lob tick, whip tick, lob tick. My advice when you're learning that one, same with the high, low, high, is do it a few times by itself. So we'll do it a few times all by itself. Just to get used to the flavor. Good time. And then you add it into the series. This is number 5, so we're going to go back to number 1. And then you would start over again. It goes over and over and over again. The last one in the series is your abanico. This is where you start to learn to perfect it. My suggestion, have a partner hold the stick up and just work the abanico like this. Thank you. If you do a minute drill of that, you would be surprised how good of a forearm workout you get. You can also do it on a heavy bag and just whack, 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 whack. Now, the abanico can aim in many different directions. If you'd hold still for me, it could come here like it's going to the crown. It could come this way on what they call the odd law line, which is the angle 1. The Boulon line, which is the angle 2. All right. Sometimes they call this languette, which is the heaven line. Sometimes when they do it down here, they call that dutas. See, it would hit. So if he was thrusting, a great way to, they do that. You see, again, when he's thrusting, it hits and it blocks and then smashes the hand. Fantastically wonderful technique, especially when you're in close range. When you look at the hubud single stick, we were doing the hubud, you can see in here, look, boom, boom, boom. So you can see that technique could be used. It could be used here on the low line. It could be used here. It could be used here. It could be used here. So it's a wonderful technique. And this is where you get to practice it. So when we do it 6 times, we don't go completely flat. If we do, oh, bad training day. So we go slightly up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we add everything together. And you just start over again. And that's your first double stick series. Okay, now what we're going to look at is some of the do-mog aspects of the Kali. Now the do-mog can be takedowns, it can be choking, locking, throwing. It just depends on what it is you're doing. In this case, for the level 1, there's a choke that I want my students to know. So here at Tribe K, the first one we do, we usually do off the inside deflection because you guys really focus on defending the angle 1 a lot. And you should. It's the most common attack. If you look at most people, they're going to hit with a forehand swing. That's going to be the way the attack comes. So Coach Joey's going to give an angle 1. I'm going to do an inside deflection. I could snake it to get rid of it. That works. I'm going to take my stick and put it up here on his trap, and I'm going to push down with both hands, just enough to lower him down. I reach behind his head, and I grab this end of the stick. I can also reach and grab it this way. This makes it tighter. And I pull, and that's the choke. All right. In order to take him down, once you're here, you just pull backwards. So as I take him down, see, it's right here. You can hold him, restrain him, hit him, it doesn't matter, or choke him out. You can keep him standing, I'm sorry. Okay, we won't go to the ground again with that, but I do want to demonstrate it a few more times. So, the angle 1, see there's your snake. maybe it hits, I push down here, and there's your choke. Very simple. Again, you could hit, knee, I could just pull and throw him, and then abandon. Okay, it doesn't matter, all right? That's the choke. So look, the choke is in my armpit, the stick is in my armpit, I'm sorry, and the other hand reaches around right here. To get him, Coach Joey and I are about the same height. He's actually a little bit shorter than I am. So he is a guru. For me to push him down, it doesn't really make any sense, but were he 3 inches taller than me, it would be hard for me to choke him. So I get in the habit of pushing right here to lower him down so that I can choke him right here. A lot of people ask, what if he tucks his chin? That's fine. It's going to be right on his jaw, and that hurts. I'm sorry. That hurts really, really bad. So it's not going to matter, all right? And the last technique I want to show is going to be the Likos from the Dumog section, and then I'm going to tie all this together. All right, Likos. My suggestion when you guys practice this, it used to be called Pudakapala, it still is. That's the Indonesian term. Likos comes from the word lihuran, which means to coil like a rope, okay? It's when they would moor a ship, they would wrap up the coils, the rope, to tie it up to moor it to the dock. All right, and that's where the Filipinos get the term from. You can do multiple entries, and I'm not trying to show you the Panantukan right now. It could be a gunting here. You could back fist, vertical gunting. There are 100 ways to get here. I'll show you how to do it with the stick in a second. I just want to cover the Likos. From this position, I'm going to push Coach Joey first, and then I'm going to pull him. When I pull him, I'm going to turn his head and lift his arm at the same time. And I'm going to take my back leg here and shift it out of the way. That is the takedown. And I lost my mic. Sorry about that. You still hear me? Okay. So again, you know, boom, 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 however I get there, it doesn't matter. All right. The forearm push is really important in the Filipino arts. Now, especially with the Likos, here's why. If I just try to grab Guro Joey's head and pull him down, he's going to resist. He's probably going to take me down. But instead, if I push into him, you see now it's easy to turn him, to take him down. Oh, sorry, I did not mean to step on your hair. That's okay. All right, one more time. Doesn't matter what the entry is. See, boom, boom, boom. I push. Make sure to push. When I turn his head and turn the arm, notice I can drop the knee. I can drop the knee. They would usually kick the arm here to break it. So, let's look at our Kali with our sticks real quick. Here's your summary. If you grab a stick, here's what I want you to do. When you're ready to test, here is your proficiency. You should be able to, from angle 1 or angle 2, let's do an outside, let's go a Bisudario. That's the method I want you to do. You're going to hit the hand, hit the hand, hit the hand. You can enter on any one you want, but I'm going to want you to enter on the 1. All right? Look, there's my inside deflection. I'm going to use the disarm I just learned. I can either use the choke, which would be there, or there's the Likos to take my opponent down. Hit, break. You need to be able to combine everything you've learned together. That is a chain technique that I want you guys to learn to do. Chain the techniques together from largo all the way through. That way you can take your opponent out. Experiment, play with it, learn, and grow. Okay? Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Wow, that's a lot of history right there. Is there anybody, friends and family, that you would like to thank for keeping you through all these times?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first and foremost is my wife, Erica. If it wasn't for her, I definitely wouldn't be where I am with her patience and allowing me to attend all this training. I mean, I don't just teach. I teach about 20 to 30 hours a week, but then on top of that, I'm gone at least twice a month at seminars, sometimes more than that, trying to learn as much as I can so that I can share that with my students. So if it wasn't for my wife, Erica, I don't think that I would be where I am today. She's also a certified instructor in the Filipino martial arts, and when she's not pregnant, she does the combat submission wrestling with me in the Jeet Kune Do, and she pushes me and motivates me. And you never want to lose to your wife, but let's face it, sometimes you do, which motivates me to really explore and learn the arts better. And then secondly would be to my son, Brandon, who's been quite an encouragement to me. He just really taught me a lot about compassion and love recently. And then to our newest unborn child, who I'm excited, we're about to have a little girl, so I'd like to dedicate the tape to them as well. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
That's really good. All right. Is there anything else? Any little thing you want to mention to future students, struggling students, people who just want a little bit of advice on, just a little inspiration?
Sure. And I'm going to use my folder to show some of this, and I'm going to try and make a point at the end of all of this. This was the Academy of Combative Evolution. We had, you probably won't be able to see this on the video, we had over 12 different martial arts here. I had over 200 students. These were 6-foot posters that we had. We were inside a 10,000 square foot building. We had a tatami mat that was almost 3,000 square feet. To understand that's huge for most training areas. I got certified in the Little Dragons program through Kimber Hill. I'm very grateful for her. I got certified through the United States Amateur Boxing Association as a boxing coach. That's my certification through Guru Kenny Berry for Junfan Jeet Kune Do. Again, same thing, just another level of that. Combat submission wrestling certifications through Kenny Berry and Eric Paulson. There's several of these. I try to train with these guys as much as possible. Combat submission wrestling, Guro and Santo training certifications through different seminars and whatnot. Training, and then one of the things I'm proudest of is my Guro Langkan Kali certification, and then also my associate instructor Guro certification under Kenny Berry. Guru Dan with Lee Peacock, which I'm very proud of this picture, because if it wasn't for Guru Lee Peacock, he would have never introduced me to Guru Dan and Nasanto, and so I'm very grateful for both of them. Guru Brian Garona and I, looking like we just got done with the night of partying. We were actually just extremely tired from a seminar. Again, Guru Dan and Nasanto, Danny and I, training together. Another picture of Guru and Nasanto, Danny, Erica and I at a training seminar, Eric Paulson, Guru Danny and I, training event, and then you won't be able to see this one, but another at our Rockledge facility, Coach Eric Paulson came down and did a training seminar there for us. What a nice guy. Talk about nice. 10 people. He came down and did a training seminar for 10 people. You'll find very few people of his caliber that are willing to come down and do a seminar for something like that. Certifications from the military, awards, citations, declarations, whatnot. Pictures, photographs. Now, here's my point. I strove, if my life goal had been to strive for all of this, I wouldn't be happy. This was what came out of my hard work. I'm still not certified under Guru Dan and Nasanto. I'm certified under Kenny Berry. I think if I ever got certified under Guru and Nasanto, I'd probably become very lazy, because I'd have exactly the one thing that I want. And so that really drives me to train as hard as I possibly can. So, and let me explain along those lines. This 200 members, 10,000 square foot facility doesn't even exist anymore. To my mind, as I look at it, even though I sold it, I failed at that. Yet I'm still teaching. I don't teach Little Dragons anymore. I'm not a boxing instructor anymore. Now, I do teach the Jeet Kune Do, the Kali, and all that. But my point being, I've never quit. So, so I guess the 2 points that I'm trying to make is that no matter how hard you try, don't quit just because you don't get what it is you want, and make sure what it is that you want is worth what you're about to give up to get it. because in the martial arts, it's a long, very hard road. We don't give out our certifications. It took me 9 years to earn most of these, 10 years to earn some of them, and I'm not even close. And I may never get a certification under Guro and Asanto. It doesn't matter. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me is that I reproduce students who are of a high quality and of a high caliber. So, you know, no matter what, no matter how many times you fail at what it is you're doing, if you love it, keep on trying to do it, because I think it'll be worth it in the end, and you'll get where you want to be. So that's probably what I'd like to say to the students.